Sarah, and I'm going to argue that food advertisements on television greatly contributes to childhood obesity. So the reason this is important is because 17% of youth from ages 2 to 19 are obese, and that number has tripled since 1980. And these children have a 70% risk of at least one cardiovascular disease and can have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or type 2 diabetes. And this information is from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So my three supporting claims for this argument are that television food commercials encourage children to make poor food choices. Children rely on television to learn new information and make decisions, and also that the types of food advertised on TV are dangerous to children's health. So for my first claim, I'm using a study from Yale University in 2009 that kids from ages 7 to 11 were more likely to consume snacks and unhealthy foods while watching a show with food commercials than children who were watching non-food commercials, and the ones watching the food commercials were likely to eat more snacks by 45%. So another reason that the television food commercials are bad is because they use movie characters, toys, and prizes to learn children to buy foods that aren't healthy for them, and they also want to get foods for the wrong reasons instead of for their nutritional value. And the foods advertised on television for kids are 34% snacks and candy, 20% cereal, and 10% fast food, and only 4% dairy, and there's nothing advertised for fruits and vegetables. So this shows that kids are relying on unhealthy foods, and they're not being shown foods that will benefit them. Also, children request the foods they see on television when they go shopping with their parents. So it's more likely that they're going to request something that isn't healthy for them. And companies that are doing this are not doing it for the right reason because it's a $27 billion industry. So they're only in it for the money, and it's not benefiting any children. So for my second claim, that children rely on television to learn new information and make decisions, a study showed that children didn't know the difference between television shows they were watching and the commercials they saw, so they're associating the commercials with their favorite television shows, so it's a positive image, and they're going to want to buy the foods that are shown on television. Also, a study showed, from the American Psychological Association, showed that children didn't know the intent of food advertisements or the motives behind them, so they're only seeing that the food advertised looks good, and they're not realizing that it's not good for them. Also, if children are going to make decisions on food, they're not going to be able to make good decisions if they're only being shown nutritionally poor foods, because whatever is advertised isn't healthy for them. And for my third claim, the types of food advertised are dangerous to health. A UCLA study showed that commercial viewing is associated with a higher BMI, and BMI is body mass index, so the higher your BMI, the more overweight you are. And if children are seeing more commercials, their weight is shown to be higher, so it's negatively impacting them. And the same UCLA study showed that there's a connection between advertising and eating habits. So it's shown that whatever kids are eating is linked to what's being shown on television commercials. Another point for this is that food choice is a big factor in childhood obesity, because what children are eating today is nutritionally more, it's less healthy, and it deals with their body needs. So if they're eating too many empty calories with high fat content and high sugar, it's not going to provide enough nutrients, and it's going to cause them to gain a lot of weight. Also, junk food is more addictive, so if you're at a store and buying food, you're more likely to buy foods that are going to make you crave, that satisfy your cravings. So like, people are likely to binge eat on chips and ice cream, but you don't hear people binging on like fruits and vegetables. So it's important that children make better food choices, and commercials are not helping them do this. So that's my claim, that food advertisements on television are greatly contributing to childhood obesity.
All right, Sarah, I thought that you did a very nice job identifying the proposition, and you had an early piece of information to show us why this is important, why we should be listening to it. I think you need to talk a little bit more about the controversy on this, that in fact there might be a variety of charges as to what is contributing to obesity, that this is as important or more important than something else, that this is a substantially different influence than we've had before, something along those lines, so that I know that you're not simply describing the fact that advertising exists and that people buy products that are advertised. I don't think that there's much controversy on that issue. I do think that you did a nice job previewing what the supporting points were going to be, so that helps with clarity quite a bit. Although when you get to your first point, I know you're there somewhere. When you get to your first point after the preview, you probably want to repeat that point, because it does come after a string of other things, and you just kind of went now on that first point, and you went right into the information there. I thought you did a much clearer job on the second and third points. You had nice labels for those points and made a transition there, so that helps quite a bit. On your evidence, I thought you had some good statistical evidence early on. Some of the inferences about the relationship between snacking and watching food, I put this comment down. I think it's perhaps a little ironic that it seems that there's some of that information is a little thin. So you could probably pile up a little bit more on some of those points. Let me see. There were a few studies that you made reference to that we didn't get any source citation on, and then there were some that we got a partial citation on. We got a reference to a UCLA study, for instance. You might want to be more consistent about citing the supporting points, or the citations, for the information that you got. So that was a little bit problematic. I think you could have used a couple of examples also. There were some assumptions, for instance, about what the content of the ads were. You mentioned, characters or toys or any of those kinds of things. But there's no evidence there that any of that has any greater inducement on kids than anything else. That seems to be a presupposition on your part. The other thing is that it would be nice if there was some way to measure the impact of this. The closest you get are some of those, that BMI stuff and the association with how much TV the kids watch. That's the closest thing where you can account for it being the TV that influences them, as opposed to a variety of other things. And if you had anything, like I said, that would develop that would make that argument stronger. On the presentation, I thought the pacing was just about right. You're kind of deliberate, but it's clear and easy to follow. You need a little bit more vocal confidence and forcefulness. I thought that you sounded like you knew what you were talking about, but you're not, I don't think you're giving us the persona that says that I'm convinced on this. It's more like, well, this is what I've read, and this is what I think probably is the argument on this, and I think you could probably add to it a little bit that way. All right, thank you very much for starting.